how we can define big data and AI, what does it mean for research and your work, and how can you utilize it for improving research design and strategy, analyzing and visualizing data, but also increasing your efficiency. And starting immediately into this topic, there is no clear definition that truly capture the essence of what big data are, but we can get close. And there are a couple of definitions that indeed try to set the stage in terms of it can be defined as large data sets that are produced in a digital form and then can be analyzed through computational tools, and that can also be defined as anything that cannot be easily captured in an Excel spreadsheet. So there are key properties that indeed define this, what big data are. And one is the volume of those data. This is also very explicit in the literal definition of what those are, but also the velocity with which everything has been analyzed, interpreted, and then, transmitted. And there are some key features that we will see more into detail, namely variety, veracity, validity, volatility, and value. But let's focus a bit more on that. So, variety, those data can be in different formats and can have different purposes, which might include objects as different as samples of animal tissue, free text observations, humidity measurement, GPS coordinates, and the results of blood tests. So, big data can include a lot of information in many different aspects and in several scientific domains. So there is no something that is specific only to certain fields. Veracity is understood as the extent to which the quality and reliability of big data can be guaranteed. Data with high volume, velocity, and variety are at significant risk of containing inaccuracies, errors, and accounted for bias. In the absence of appropriate validation and quality check, this could result in a misleading or outright incorrect evidence base for knowledge claim. And here I really would like to emphasize that indeed, despite all the technology we are used to apply in our daily life, indeed there is something that cannot still be substituted, which is the critical impact that with which we analyze those information and the credibility that we attributed to those information. So we still need at this point so far to know much more than what the machine are saying, because indeed we need to differentiate what is real and what is not, what is accurate and what is not. In terms of validity, it indicates the selection of appropriate data with respect to the intended use. The choice of a specific data set as evidence base requires adequate and explicit justification, including resource to relevant background knowledge to ground identification of what counts as data in that context. And this is exactly why you still need to study and keep knowing more, because indeed you can then validate the information that you got through machine. Volatility is the extent to which data can be relied upon to remain available, accessible, and reinterpretable despite the changes in archival technologies. This is significant given the tendency of formats and tools used to generate and analyze data to become obsolete, and the effort required to update the data infrastructure so as to guarantee data access in the long term. In terms of volatility, we need also to understand that there are no proper regulations that has been drafted by all country on AI use, which means that most of the time, if you have a data set, you also need to worry about what to happen on that data set if is uploaded. So there are many software that are trying indeed to guarantee some privacy, some restriction availability, but indeed the fact that there are not uniform and homogeneous regulation across the country renders sometimes difficult this use, and this a bit at the discretion of the system itself. Value is the multifaceted forms of significant attributed to big data by different sections of society, which depend as much on the intended use of the data on an historical, social, and geographical circumstance. Alongside scientific value, researchers and institutions impute financial, ethical, reputational, and effective value to data depending on their intended use as well as the historical, social, and geographical circumstances of their use. Indeed, the value of the data, most of the people do not understand it yet. And this I'm referring especially to countries that are giving away their wealth in terms of data to other country to build up specific system and to improve machine learning technique. So machine learning and AI are indeed based and formed of algorithms that are trained and need to be trained on a lot of data to then be able to make a prediction. For AI, we know that is the acronym of artificial intelligence, and ML is machine learning. So broader the AI means a broader field, meaning that all computer systems are capable to perform a task that historically only a human could do. You can use AI indeed for a variety of tasks that nowadays substitute even specific humans jobs, right? So, and I'm sure that if you look around yourself, you can see many of those examples. But machine learnings are algorithms that are trained on data sets to create models that then enable those machines to perform the task that historically only a human could do. So this means that you really need a huge set of data to learn those algorithms, to train, sorry, those algorithms in order to have those models as accurate as possible. Which means that once you have the data set, the big data set, then you create those algorithms and you train the model to then realize a prediction and make a prediction about the future. And by according to the information that you are inserting in the model, then you might have a different prediction. So from this slide, you can indeed understand that the use of this technology is very broad because you can make prediction about climate change. You can make prediction about ocean pollution if nothing is being done during 10 years. You can make a prediction about health if the population continue to increase their lifespan, but unfortunately science is not catching up as fast in finding cures for specific aging related diseases, etc., etc. So, and there are some analytics that can take on three different levels. Indeed, we start with the descriptive data and the statistics. So this is what we are used to, right? So these are what we get in the lab. We get the data, we interpret it, we do statistics on it, but then we define patterns. And through the definition of specific patterns by the interpretation of the data that we have, we can already start to indeed promote some models that then predict something. And the prediction of this outcome is used then by all this technology also to draft a specific recommendation. And this recommendation, therefore, allows to be more prescriptive on what the solution might be towards or to tackle specific challenges that may be global challenges or related to the field that you are studying. So according to these three different levels, then we have different involvement of big data, which means all of those, but also data analytics, which means from the descriptive to predictive, so from the statistics to the definition of patterns. This is what analytics also means, but also in terms of training the algorithm and promoting a further training of machine learning and AI solutions. So then we really need to work on models. So this is the steps after the having the data. If we don't have data, qualitative and then quantitative data, is very difficult then to insert information in a model. So it's very easy to understand that, and this is the reason for which we can still not substitute our work, scientific work, for the acquisition, with the acquisition of a specific machines and software. What does big data and machine learning mean for research? So there is a complete different approach to science. So the approach to science is really changing towards also innovation. So most of the governmental agencies funding projects, and now they require a specific session on which is the technology you use, which is the innovation of your project. So there is a lot of emphasis on this type of technology, but also in terms of data science expertise. So it's becoming more valuable. So, and we will need much more people that can understand how to process those data, but we need also those more people that understand how to build more algorithms and also how to build this technology in the sense that will be used by a broad spectrum of professionals. Also, there are different resources that might be needed because we might not need anymore all the equipment that we will use, for instance, in a biomedical lab, because just with one drop of blood suspension or tissue suspension, etc., we can have a full profile of all the omics that we can think of. So even in terms of technology, in terms of the set of data that you can have, is really different from what we were used up to some years ago. So there is also the if you correctly used, so those technology are really useful also to help you out in defining some hypotheses. And this is a bit the title is data centric versus hypothesis centric approach. So which start first? Is first the hypothesis or is first getting the data? And this indeed technology can help you out in redefining all this, because if you have a specific data set, then you can interpret it and draft hypothesis based on that data set. The same way that you might start having a big question, and then you use this kind of technology to then extrapolate a set of data that might be already present in the literature, but also you might indeed create specific procedures and experimental activity to create those data that you need. So indeed is not anymore very clear which comes first. So there is a data driven hypothesis generation nowadays that is a sort of a theory informed inquiry, because you have at your disposal much more information than what we previously had. So, data science expertise is therefore more important than ever, because more data does not mean more insight. And this is why you need to continue to study, to continue to filter the data, the interpretation also that you will receive, and ask the question: those data sets are valid, are useful, are accurate, are up to date? validate, are suitable the algorithms that are being used to analyze or interpret the data or draw the conclusion, are overfitting. So there are a lot of questions that the machine cannot reply, but you can with the knowledge that you continue to acquire. And I cannot emphasize and stress more on this aspect. So you need always to know your data. You cannot rely on machine doing. You need to be able to criticize when you see something that might go wrong and not simply take it for granted. And then you need to know what you're doing with your data, because indeed the machines cannot define the direction of your research or the conclusion that you would like to propose with the data sets that you analyzed. So if you have some doubts about it, so just get help by other researchers or colleagues that you might have around. So there are indeed expertise and resources, as we mentioned also in the previous slides, that are really needed to work with the big data and AI. And these are therefore how to handle data. So it's not a matter just of acquiring data or getting data, but it's also how to handle, how to manage, how to discard what indeed might not be significant or relevant to your research, and just redefine a data set that is more suitable for answering what you are asking. But these require also a lot of expertise that you might need to learn meanwhile, because also when you use those tools and algorithms, so you need to ensure and validate the accuracy and the reliability, because just like this you might you might propose something that is sustainable and really credible. So therefore would need also more and more resources, because also, let's be clear, there are some extrapolations with this machine learning and AI that is being made, meaning that whenever there are no data available on specific aspects, that those data are rendered available through extrapolation. And I'm making you an example of at the beginning, for instance, whenever we were asking something about low or middle income countries where specific infrastructure is not yet available, but there are data, but there are not compiled, and therefore there are not available to be inserted into this machine learning. All what we got were approximation, but not sometimes even close to reality. Okay, so we need still to work on the type of resources that we need, also in terms of ethics and regulations. And here there are some tips for researchers on using big data in science and research. So first of all, indeed, you need to understand your data. You need to know everything about the data you are using, such as where and how it was collected, including the sample methods, the context, any limitation. Know what your data can and cannot tell you. So you really need to be a scientist anyway. And this is something, this is my take home message. So do not ever think that your brain can be substituted by some technological tool, regardless of how accurate it might be. So you need to visualize your data and get familiar with your data by graphing it. And this is a message extremely important for young scientists and early career researcher. Spend time in front of the graph and try to just capture all the messages that graph is telling you, because information, for instance, on outlier or other bad behavior can be found before data points are included in the analysis, or you might want indeed to really be sure applying different statistical tests to really draw conclusions that are very highly accurate, and document everything. It might be boring for early researcher or university student to always fill up a lab book, but indeed is instrumental for you because it make it easy not simply for you to repeat and to validate and indeed make your work reproducible, but also for anybody that wanted to reproduce your work, because if your notes are really taken in the right way, so then everything is easy, even when there will be a time for you to write an article or to write a thesis, because it's just redefining what you already wrote in the lab book. So make those notes and the data available also to your teammates is very important. And then be skeptic. And this is something that all scientists need to have. So you need to be careful to validate a conclusion, to avoid generalizing a piece of knowledge found in the large data set that and think that it might be just a small coincidence. So try to really see whether your finding might be indeed serving a more global type of knowledge. Learn to program. So it's important that you might take courses in a different type of software, from R to Python and whatever your group or institution is using, because even if you are not doing the programming, it always helps to speak the language. So you don't need to be an engineer if you have enrolled in a cell biology course, but indeed at least have some notions that if you have some questions, so then you can even express yourself. It's not simply for the understanding of the matter, it's also to expressing yourself correctly. And then ask for help, because you do not have to be an expert in everything. Research is not a solo act, it's a joint effort, but never be ashamed to say, I don't know, can you please tell me? Because indeed, this is the only job, science, where we can say, I don't know, indeed, because there are so many things that we don't know that we cannot be ashamed or blamed for. So be really confident and raise your hand and ask. So, how can you make the most of big data and AI in research? So, indeed, nowadays, researchers are using AI to define their strategy, so to generate some hypotheses from some ideas that they might have about their investigation, and also to, integrate their idea and their hypothesis into publications and the literature that has been published in meantime. But they are also using AI for data analysis, so basic tools in terms of software for data analysis, for stats, tools with automated machine learning and AI functions offering instant insights, so about the data, or also even is very useful to visualize the data under different perspectives. So instead of simply making one graph, so according to different variables, then you can visualize simultaneously different data sets, and then see which is indeed the variable that modulate the most the impact of what you are studying. But also they are very much used to improve the efficiency. So there is a lot of time that we often use to be updated with the literature, and AI can indeed allow us to to have more time at our disposal, because we can redefine the search, and we can indeed instruct to highlight some of the discovery in a more efficient manner. So we can improve our research productivity, and we can also use it for presentation. presentations, because there are many softwares nowadays that can be used to make a presentation not simply more attractive, but even for researchers to, not spend a lot of time in creating some scheme or some diagrams, explanatory diagrams of specific pathways and so on. And of course, that ChatGPT is one of the main tool that is used nowadays, but there are also other kind of software that you can use. So the big data analysis can indeed, as I mentioned in the previous slide, can indeed be used to generate some hypotheses. So you have an idea, you have an unsolved question, you give context to these softwares, and then you ask which problem to solve or to understand with the context that you prepared and introduced in the machine. So, for instance, which disease or biological process I can investigate with these premises. But also, research and analysis plan can be indeed elaborated for you using these instruments. For instance, which is the key question that would need to be asked with these specific data sets, or which data can support this question, and therefore it defines the direction for me to acquire those data, or which analysis is needed to indeed be able to ensure that the plan of activity and therefore my research question is answered. So for example, which is the rationale for data selection and analysis that I'm inserting into this software. But also they are used to search for suitable data sets. So for instance, we have an hypothesis, we know where we want to go, but we don't know exactly where to find the suitable data sets that can support what we say already, for then us to get deeper in our research investigation. So where to find the suitable data, how to access those data, how I can integrate those data in the findings that I'm generating. And therefore, in this case, it can give you access to data repository, for instance, in terms of sequencing results, or in terms of mass spec results, or expression libraries, etc. But they can also be used to prepare data and then analyze data. So you clean and prepare the data, you validate the data on different settings, and you analyze those data, like for instance in silico work, to integrate and analyze then all relevant data. So the output is a new hypothesis for research to be followed up. So how you can indeed use all these tools to continue your research. So you share your analysis data for even sometimes additional and here low impact publication, in the sense that if you screen your data and you get them analyzed like a genomics or transcriptomic data or other omics data, then you might share it on a public repository, but you can also publish the data set in the specific journals that are at your disposal to do that. So, and this is just a simple analysis of the data that you got. So you can indeed be creative in this sense, and promote more let's say more use of your research. And these are some tools to analyze indeed some data that require though science expertise. So they are not friendly, because indeed it is taken for granted that you have the knowledge to indeed insert data on these specific software and then take out the most of it. And those are indeed from statistics to compilation and analysis analysis through computational tools of many different data sets. So you can indeed accelerate model building or qualitative research with machine learning and AI. And you can build confidentially, deploy, manage, and govern generative and predictive AI. So you can build it automatically with test and then validate the models on your data, and then offer even data management and data pre-cleaning and validation tool. And these are specific software, the data robot that does that. With the other software, you can gain qualitative insight in minutes instead of weeks by doing an automated tagging of tests for qualitative markers using AI, or automated summaries and real-time coding tagging suggestion. And these are indeed some examples of how you can go faster in building your model or analyzing your qualitative data. But there are also some visualization tools that you might want to explore, and then go beyond the Excel plots because the graphs might be plotted in a more, let's say, sophisticated manner, but also they might allow you to see more into the data that you collected. And these are indeed some example. Again, that require some expertise before using it. So what those AI tool does in terms of literature review, they enhance your efficiency because there are these are different type of platform and software that allows you to go faster but in more efficient way, narrowing down the literature search that you might want to perform. So if you, for instance, go if you are imagine that you are biomedical scientist and you type, for instance, malaria or cancer in PubMed, uh, you have millions of articles that are being spotted. But instead of reading them all, if you narrow it down, your research through specific software, then you are not simply more efficient, but also more connected to the investigation that you want to pursue. Our Discovery provides you personalized recommendations for the listed research papers daily or in social media style based on your area of interest, and allows you indeed to find the specific papers and the specific content. Lead maps help you find the relevant paper from just a single paper. Helps you to categorize the paper, and it works also with a specific reference tool to visualize the relationship between papers. Shiny AI so show the most relevant papers to a seed papers and determine for you whether other paper agree or disagree with that article, and helps you understand the holistic work done by a lab or organization. Connected papers figure out the forward and backward links to a research paper, quantitatively show the relevance index of paper and visualize the relationship between them. Research Rabbit is an AI based assistant for searching literature, showing the relationship among papers, and then Journal Finders that help you out to find the right journal to submit your paper to. And this is very important also for early career researchers that do not still have a clear idea most of the time of where to submit their research. But indeed, the efficiency is not simply for the literature review, it's also for the research productivity, because they turn your task into the perfect schedule. So it helps you to be organized and focused. But there are also softwares that extension, in this case, the SheSpace Copilot, that offers real-time answer to article and then simplify your research process and gain insight. There are also others that provide you the access to crucial business data within ChatGPT and interacts with other program to ask question and receive answer in real time. But there are also helping you to schedule meetings without leaving your inbox and managing your calendar in a more efficient manner, the same way that there are software that boost your productivity and in terms of how you manage your time. And then voila, that will help you in writing papers or writing emails and creating good content of any kind. There are also many software that have been developed nowadays to improve the way that you are doing presentation. So to make a research presentation or to develop a presentation in an organized way by an idea that you might have, and then you turn that idea interactive, the same way that there are software that are offering you templates and visual elements, customizing a specific option to help researchers create impactful presentation. And also there are some AI tools that allows you to create posters or specific slides, but also that provides you figures to introduce then in a papers, presentation, and graphical abstract, etc. There are specific cautions that we might need to have whenever we use, for instance, ChatGPT. The lack indeed of fact checking is something that I already mentioned at the very beginning, that it generates responses on what has been already trained for, but you need to have the ability to verify the accuracy of the information that is provided, because indeed sometimes is inaccurate and specifically when referring to academic research. But sometimes is also bias and subjective responses that are giving, because indeed there are subjective information, as I told you and make you that example. Some information is extrapolated and not applied really to reality, so the model might have a biased behavior or provide a subjective opinion rather than an objective analysis. And this as well can be indeed an issue if you are not really aware of what the knowledge, the current knowledge around you is. Also the lack of transparency, right? Because sometimes it's difficult to understand why it gives you responses that goes more in one direction than others, and it can be also difficult to trace the reasoning or the sources behind the information that is provided, because it's not as transparent as you would be in a research article. There are also limited contextual understanding, because although generates a more response and sometimes are very coherent, but sometimes there are not. So, and they can produce responses that might sound plausible, but do not capture the complexity and the depth of the subject, and therefore you always need to really verify the information, and also to in terms of ethical consideration, so the data privacy, the potential misuse, so it might indeed be an issue, not simply because ethical regulation are not drafted unanimously for all the country, but also because sometimes the model might inadvertently generate inappropriate or offensive content, and the researcher therefore must take precaution to prevent some harm or inappropriate use. Lack of domain specific expertise, because is a general purpose language model, but is lacking specialized knowledge in specific academic domains. So it can provide general information on different topics, but it does not have the depth to understand specific domains or advanced type of research. So ChatGPT alternative for academics. So for instance, PaperPal is a software that is very useful to explore, especially academic writing, because is designed specifically for academic content, and is releasing also PaperPal Copilot briefly. So with the new generative AI power feature that then overcome the specific limitation of tools like ChatGPT. But unlike general purpose AI writing tools, so this software is designed to support academics in the sense that are trained or publish article and scholarly literature. They do have it does have a domain for a different kind of expertise and strong knowledge of specialized research field. It's very reliable also in its responses because it's verified. The data is really verified and backed up by many academic expertise. It removes the need to write effective prompts to desired specific outcome. And then it has a robust and security privacy measure to safeguard your research whenever it's uploaded, something that most of the software is still, a question marks whether your data are being saved or not. So the key takeaway message for this webinar in terms of big data, anything that cannot be easily captured in an Excel spreadsheet is the best definition that you can give. In terms of machine learning and AI, our algorithms train on data to make prediction. The approach to science is changing and is good in a way, but you need still to value more and more all your expertise on top of expertise in data science that you might acquire. And different resources indeed are needed to to be able um, to be able to better take all what is needed from these tools. Big data analysis can be used to generate hypotheses. Share your analysis data for additional publication that you might want to have. And basic data analysis tools are really powerful, but requires data science expertise. So you can accelerate models, you can accelerate model building or qualitative research with machine learning and AI, and using a data visualization tool that you can go beyond Excel plots. Also, those tools are very useful indeed to review the literature, to enhance the productivity and create research presentation. And researchers should be very cautious about the use of specific tools like ChatGPT. And with that, so I thank you all for the attention. My name is Raffaella Gozzellino. I will stop sharing my screen right now, and I will be very happy to take questions that you might have. Thank you very much. Let me just open the light, switch on the light so we can see each other better. Or at least I hope so. First question, based on your expertise in leveraging AI and big data for research, what specific recommendation do you have for effectively using AI tools to enhance the collection and analysis of research data set? So the specific recommendation I might have is indeed to know where you want to go. So most of the time, with those tools, so you need really, if you wanted to enhance the analysis of the research And if you wanted to collect the most information as possible, what you need to go is your end goal, because most of the times the people are hesitating just because they don't know exactly the direction that they want to take. So if you know your end goal, then you can indeed use AI to help you out in going towards the direction, and therefore asking which are the data I needed to collect in order to get that result or that outcome, which is the best analysis that I can get in terms of really enhance the significance of my data, which are other experimental procedures that I can apply for to ensure the credibility of those data, but also to ensure the significance of those results. And that is the best strategy I can tell you to use. But you always need to be the most knowledgeable person, because indeed this is what is required. We are not at the point at all that a machine substitutes human. So do not let them do that. And it also depends on you. Thank you to you for having invested your time in this talk. Looking at your list of AI tools, could you show us which ones are open source or fully accessible tools? So for that, I really prefer that you indeed go and explore those tools, because not all we don't need all AI tools that are now available. We need to have tools that are suitable to the research that we do. So this is why it does not make sense to me if I'm telling you which are free and which are not, because I might tell you one that is free but is not suitable for your research anyway. So then it's good that you go and you explore, and remember that there are some of tools that allows you indeed to get into the tool and start using it to see whether the tool is suitable for you. And this is the best thing that you can do, because you can start getting the feeling of how it works, and how and if it will be beneficial to your research, while not investing in still in purchasing a license. Can you please comment on plagiarism and IP with AI tools used in research and academia? Okay, so this is why I'm saying that you need to be the best person, the most knowledgeable person on your field, because you can easily spot plagiarism. So, plagiarism is something that is very detrimental to everybody, to all career researchers, to all field, to all stage. The thing with plagiarism is that it's easily spotted, because while you are using an AI tool to pursue your questions, to analyze your data, etc., you need always to remember that if you submit your manuscript to the journals, the first thing that the journal check is indeed the plagiarism. The first thing that if you work for a translation agencies, those agencies are checking is indeed the degree of similarity, so to see whether you performed the work yourself with your own words rather than using some machine. And that's a problem, So usually there is a sort of threshold of similarity upon which you cannot go, meaning that upon which is above that threshold is considered indeed the plagiarism, because there are indeed some expression that needs to be said that way, right? And that occurs especially for materials and methods. But there are others that there are others expression that of course that you can say it in your own words. So you always need to be careful. If you are not a native speaker, or if you are not confident with your level of English, try to paraphrase as much as you can. So try to express with your own words and other words the same concept, but that you get there. And those is also what that specific function is also what you can use machine learning and AI tools to improve your English, because there are some specific programs that indeed are editing the text in terms of allowing you to improve and master the English. In terms of IP, that is still a matter of debate in most of the country, which is the IP property of something that has been generated with AI. So regulation are not there yet, and this is why most of the time is confusing passing from one country to others. Regulation are much more flexible in the United States, for instance, rather than Europe. Yeah, there is a lot of things that we still need to learn. So and I just made that example because indeed there is this discussion nowadays, especially in European countries. But is it's a lot still to digest. So the best way possible is to use those tools as tools. Thank you to you for having invested your time. When English is not your first language, how to avoid overusing AI in academic writing? How can I check if I'm still in the acceptable range? You are still in the acceptable range if your English is not very good, and all of a sudden I'm using an AI tool and my English is perfect, so then I'm possibly not be in the acceptable range, right? So use your tool to improve your English, but indeed try to take advantage of that opportunity also to learn English per se. So you might use AI in academic writing, not for the entire text, because otherwise you will not learn. So it's difficult to just say you are in the acceptable range, because remember that is machine learning. So all what is then produced has been learned somewhere else, right? So, and there is a very high probability that what is then reproduced is because it's taken, even if it's into pieces, by different kind of text. So this is why it's very important that you learn how to use the tool, but you also learn how to master your knowledge. Thank you to you. How can AI and the ML systems be designed to enhance veracity and reduce biases? Yeah, we will get there. The more think like that, the more information the algorithm gets, the more accurate then the information that will come out after the algorithm results, and therefore biases are minimized. The reason being that nowadays, as I said, because of regulation, but it does not have to anything to do with us. This is something at political level, right? So, but because of the regulation are not well implemented, so then sometimes it's difficult to feed the model with all the data that needs to really be accurate. And it's just like this that we will minimize bias. Nowadays, advanced economy has less bias than low and middle income countries because they have more data to feed the model with. And this is why I'm saying we will get there. But before getting there, we also know or need to know the value of the data that we feed the model with, because that needs to be regulated. Okay. So yeah, we will reduce every. So if you look, for instance, at the first AI tools that have been developed a few years ago, when there was this first launching of this technology worldwide, so the accuracy improved dramatically, but we are not still as accurate especially in specific fields, because it requires more knowledge to feed the algorithm. But with time, everything is with time, and this is why is always needed you to continue to read the literature to really be sure that what is produced is indeed accurate enough that you can then use it.